Hello everybody, Donnie here, and welcome. Here we discuss real stories by real people. I hope all of you are doing well and fine today. We're going to dive right into this. This is actually the continuation of the previous two stories. Update: I hurt my husband in an argument and now he won't talk to me. Original post: my husband, 32 male, and I, 31 female, have been together for 7 years and married for 5. We have a 3.5-year-old son and a 1-year-old daughter. His parents passed away when he was 20. To describe it shortly, he despises his father to this day. His father ruined his promising athletic career. He was once ranked in the top 10 nationally at his sport and forced him to focus on school. My husband was accepted to multiple Ivy League schools and his father refused to pay tuition as well. His father was a control freak, physically abusive towards him, and refused to entertain any opposing opinions. My husband vowed to himself to never be like his father and to always encourage his future kids' interests and opportunities. He has always been an amazing husband and father to me and our kids. He makes spending time with us a priority, keeps our relationship fun and exciting, and just always makes me feel beautiful and appreciated. We've been going through a bit of a rough patch for a few weeks and we are arguing about something that wasn't even worth arguing about in hindsight. He said that he was done arguing and walked away mid-conversation. I blurted out, "You're just like your father." Boy, that was the wrong thing to say, I think. As soon as I said that, I immediately started apologizing and ran to him and tried to hug him. He refused my hug, looked at me, shook his head, and walked out the door. A whole day passed and I hadn't seen or heard from him. I called, texted, and left many voicemails apologizing and asking him to please come home. I reached out to his friends and they had not heard from him either. He walked in drunk at 4 a.m. the next night and collapsed on our couch. I heard him come in and ran downstairs to see him. He was slurring his words and was saying things like, "I'm not like him," and "Why would you say that?" I just held him in my arms all night long and apologized many times. It's been another 2 days and my husband refuses to talk or look at me. He's not even eating anything I make. I've tried talking to him and apologizing. He just looks at me and says, "It's just another thing I have to live with," and walks away from wherever I am. I have no idea how to fix this. I didn't mean to hurt him, but the fact that he feels betrayed by the one person he should feel supported and uplifted by, me, he is absolutely the love of my life and it hurts me knowing that I caused him to feel this pain. Please advise on what I can do or say to fix this. Now for the comments before reading the update. Great. In order to win a stupid argument, you had to give him a low blow using that, what was a thing that he only confided to a person he trusted and loved, by what it looks like. To win an effing argument, you must be proud of yourself. It will really be worth it in the long run, you will see. You are the a-hole. This person says, "Damn, I wasn't ready to read that. My bio dad was a piece of trash. Part of what ended a 6-year relationship for me was my girlfriend saying to me what you said to your husband. I didn't end things because I was angry. I ended it because for the next 6 months, I tried to make it work. I couldn't think about anything other than, does she really think that I'm like him? I just couldn't trust what she thought of me anymore. Any small disagreement we had made me worry she'd say it again. I don't know if it's fixable, but I guess here's what I've learned from the situation. I didn't want an apology. I needed to believe that she didn't mean it, not even a little. I couldn't be with someone who saw me like that or could say that to me. It just broke my trust and we couldn't fix it. He needs to believe deep down that you didn't mean it. He also needs to understand why you said it and why he can trust you won't say it next time. I don't know what you can do to that, but I wish you the best of luck. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Also, yes, the a-hole. This is beyond, yes, you're the a-hole. You're a POS. There's nothing you can do. This is up to him, and it looks like he's contemplating just living with you, not being able to trust you. It goes without saying that you should never stab him in the heart again. But even if you don't, he won't feel completely safe around you again. He doesn't feel betrayed. He is betrayed. Unless the argument was around balancing your kids' academic and athletic pursuits or something else related to his father's actions, the fact that you chose to attack him this way shows you've been holding on to it, intending to hurt him with it to get your way. What other punishments do you have lined up should he disagree with you on something and speak his mind? This person says, are you seriously that effing stupid? You lack any sort of control over your emotions and the words that come out of your mouth? You literally lied to his face just to hurt him, and for what? Because you couldn't handle the possibility that maybe, just maybe, you were being obnoxious and couldn't handle the fact that he didn't want to talk to you anymore? Is your apologies just as impulsive as your low blows? Because if so, they don't mean shit. They're just more lies. He is absolutely the love of my life, and it hurts me knowing that I caused him to feel this pain. Please advise what I can do or say to fix this. Figure it out yourself, dickhead. We don't know him, but you do. You should have known that this likely will not last any longer because you've ingrained into his mind that he's like his father. That will subconsciously eat away at him and likely cause some esteem issues and permissive demeanors in the future. You ruined a good man, and now your kids are going to have to suffer because of your piss-poor actions and lack of rationale. This person says, yes, the a-hole. You did mean to hurt him. That's why you said what you said. So the first thing you need to do is come to terms with that. Try to heal from that place. If you can't be honest with why you said it, then any apology coming from a place of dishonesty. Second is, while his reaction is valid, this level of feeling defeated is telling me one thing. This isn't the first time he's felt this way with you. Not to this level of hurt, sure, but clearly he has been working very hard to break cycles and rise above, and you are not what? Appreciating his attempts, asking for more, being dismissive? What are you not telling us? My husband and I are both breaking cycles of our own, and we are both vicious when it comes to how we argue, and we have both said things that hurt to the bone, but we always come back because we both know everything else is, and the work we do is appreciated. What have you done to break him down to this being the reason he's defeated? This person says, a lot of good comments here already. I think you need to also realize that you broke his trust. He trusted you and you used it to hurt him because you wanted to hurt him. I certainly believe that you regret it and are genuinely remorseful, but you need to explore your need to cut as low as you could to hurt him as much as you could. One of the many reasons he's not coming back is he is realizing he can never trust you again, and for many or most, that's a relationship deal breaker. Oh my gosh, she's getting grilled. But rightfully so, I guess. Now for the update. I got some comments and some messages trashing my husband for walking away from the argument that started all of this and saying he is like his father. I'm not going to say what the argument was about here, but it was pointless, and walking away from it was the mature thing to do. He is the best husband and father anyone could ask for. Even when he wasn't talking to me, he was still spending time with and taking care of the kids. Think whatever you want of me, I deserve it, but leave him out of it. On to the actual update. My husband came home after work the next day and bought takeout for dinner. We had dinner as a family for the first time in a few days and put the kids to bed together. I asked if we could talk. I apologized and admitted that I was tired of all the arguments we were having lately, and in the heat of the moment I wanted to hurt him and said what would hurt the most. He said that he knows he is nothing like his father and why I thought he was. I promised that I don't believe that at all and told him all the great things he does for me and our children. I told him that I would see a therapist to figure out what made me say what I did and to make sure it never happened again. The conversation lasted about an hour and a half and ended with him telling me that it would take some time, but we would be okay as long as I never compared him to his father again. We kissed and slept together for the first time since the incident. In the next few days, there was still a certain coldness about him. He was still happy to spend time with the kids, but was still somewhat cold with me. I wrote him a letter telling him how much I loved and appreciated him and promised to never hurt him again, and slipped it into his lunch bag. He came home with flowers for me that day. Our normal vibe was somewhat returned, and it looks like we will be good going forward. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for no longer being close to my daughter after she ignored her mother and my wife when she was very ill? Plus update. Original post. My daughter is 19, still very young, but old enough to know what she did wrong. 5 years ago, my wife, her biological mother, began to exhibit very strange behavior. She would say weird things, make impulsive decisions, and act strange. She and my daughter would often clash. Now my daughter always was a daddy's girl, but she was still close with her mother. I honestly thought my wife was going through a midlife crisis and dealing with the pressures of working while raising a teen, and we had a come to Jesus talk. About 6 months after the start of that behavior, my wife ended up in a really bad accident. When they were performing emergency surgery, they found a ball-sized tumor pressing her brain, which was the cause of her initial behavior. My wife ended up having to relearn everything from walking to talking. She was still reeling from the effects of the accident and the brain tumor and was mentally and physically disabled for a while. Our daughter refused to be seen in public with my wife. She hated the mess of the wheelchair and her mother's condition. She would also just ignore her mother and speak to me all the time, sometimes even about her. She saw my wife as a burden and would complain to people to the point where the school called me. At the time, I was just struggling to get by and I couldn't alienate my daughter. My wife needed a lot of care and my daughter was in a difficult stage of her life that I couldn't abandon her in. When my daughter went off to college, I was sad but also somewhat relieved. My wife still needs a wheelchair sometimes and she has difficulty with some things, but she has honestly improved so much. It really solidified our love for each other and our belief in our marriage. My daughter's coming back for summer break after exams. I don't know why, but I feel uncomfortable with her staying for this long. I feel like the sense of closeness that I had with her evaporated when she treated her own mother callously. I don't know what to do. My wife is very excited to have her daughter come, but I don't want to see her heartbroken. I've tried getting over it and talking with my therapist, but I just can't feel emotionally close with my daughter and I'm sure that she'll notice. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I don't know where any of your assumptions about my wife are coming from. Her mother was never abusive in any way, including mentally or emotionally. When I said my wife did or said strange things, she regressed in some ways to a child which was exacerbated by the accident. For example, she would go on and on about a show that she watched. She couldn't tell a story. She would spit out food that she didn't like. My daughter would never have been put in an abusive situation. Now for the update. Mother's Day was terrible. I don't know why I'm updating this. Maybe it's for the few people who can sympathize. A lot of the prior comments made untrue, horrible accusations about my wife. My wife was never abusive or even mean, not in any state. It makes it so much harder to understand why her daughter would be so cold to her own mother. My wife's mental state before the accident had regressed into childlike behavior, which is concerning but not the cause of my daughter's coldness. My wife would spit food out back into her plate, bluntly say it tasted bad, and wipe her nose with her sleeve like a child. I made the error of thinking she was having a midlife crisis because she bought an expensive dress because it was soft. She would forget to do things, her responsibilities. Mother and daughter clashed because she would tell stories with no beginning and end, just rambling. She would ask the same questions over and over. She would promise to pick her up or bring something and forget. Things that would annoy a teenage girl. The tumor was concentrated in the back of the head. When she got into the car accident, it made everything worse. She needed to relearn everything. She was still disabled. We had high expectations for our daughter, but she set them higher for herself. She had a dream school where she wanted to go since she was 12. It meant that I had to do some chauffeuring to so many activities throughout high school and sacrifice a lot to make sure that she got the opportunities that she wanted. It meant leaving my disabled wife in a long-term care facility to hopefully recover. It was COVID, so there was long stretches where we didn't visit her. She was there for too long. I never should have left her there. When she came home, my wife was still largely nonverbal and wheelchair-bound. She needed help with everything from eating to going to the bathroom. I earned a little as a caregiver on top of my regular job. My daughter was so cruel and cold to her mother at that time. She wasn't a young kid or even a young teen anymore. She was never expected and never did take care of her mother, so it wasn't caregiver burnout. She would hate if her mother came outside with her and would later blame it on the wheelchair, saying it was bulky and attracted attention. She would ignore her mother and move away to distance herself physically. I ended up getting a call from the school because a classmate had overheard what she said about her mother and reported it as ableism. I don't know what she said. All I know is that it was very cruel to her mother. I had her in individual therapy and we did therapy as father and daughter. It was her choice to stop. My daughter ended up getting into her dream college. They had accepted Students' Weekend and she demanded that her mother stay home even though parents were invited. By that time, my wife had made leaps and bounds in progress and was disappointed to stay home. I went and tried to be a proud father. At least she let her mother go to graduation. My daughter came home a few days ago. Her exams were earlier. She informed us that she earned a research position with a professor for the summer. My wife was overjoyed, writing a card all on her own about how proud she was, and she wished that she saw her daughter grow into an accomplished young woman. How proud she was to share this moment. My daughter looks sick with guilt. I know what that looks like. On Mother's Day, I made a comment that she couldn't ignore her mother today. She told me to stop saying that. I made another comment about how proud her mother was of her and how much she loved her. I was doing it on purpose. It ended up with her saying she regretted what she did. I always had my suspicions. I interrogated her until she tearfully admitted she hated what her mother had turned into, and she hit her mother once, and she was ashamed to be around her because of what people thought. We got into a shouting match, and she yelled at me that I was so focused on everyone else's behavior because I regretted my own. It's true in a lot of ways. Because of COVID, there were limited visiting hours, but I still didn't visit as much as I should have. I left my wife in a facility to focus on our daughter, but also so that it would be easier for me. There are no siblings, no grandparents to help. I didn't visit as much because I hated how much my wife would sob when I had to leave. I started feeling guiltier when I read a news article about a nurse being sentenced for assaulting a woman in a coma. I thought about my wife. She was nonverbal, had limited short-term memory, and a wheelchair bound. I wouldn't know what would happen. I tried to convince myself that it was fine, but all I did was find more and more news articles about abuse at care facilities. I would have nightmares. I pulled my wife out. I took months of work. I finally got her home. She was taken care of, but not like I would have. There were a few knots in her hair, bruises, and sores. I won't lie, the care was brutal. Now I had to juggle taking care of my wife and making sure my daughter was supported and able to reach her dreams. And it was hard seeing my wife like that. She was accomplished and intelligent, and now couldn't do a puzzle or eat on her own or go to the bathroom by herself. There was a huge learning curve, and they assigned a nurse to come see my wife every few days. My wife is so sweet. I attend a caregiver support group, and I feel guilty because my wife doesn't have the fits of temper or the rage or the depression that others did. I felt guilty for being tired. Some had it a lot harder than I did. She got better, and over time it was almost like she was almost back to her old self, and she never lost love for either of us. It hurts that she blames herself for how her daughter treated her. Maybe I shouldn't have let my daughter focus on prestige and appearance so much. Maybe I should have realized the signs early on and exposed her to others. My daughter and I aren't speaking. My wife just wanted a happy family. I'm looking for therapy for us as a family. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for leaving without explanation after mother-in-law pretended not to hear me? I, 32 female, have a 7-month-old daughter with my husband, 34 male. My country does ensure a long maternity leave for up to 2 years. However, I am self-employed and cannot afford to lose my clients, so I try to work while my daughter is sleeping and during the weekends. Lately, she's been teething, so I'm operating on little to no sleep. I have an issue with my mother-in-law. She does what she wants despite people asking her not to, and then says oops or denies doing it. Things like that. It was annoying before the baby, but after she was born, it has become insufferable. Husband talked to her and set boundaries, so she stopped doing that when my husband is present, but she was still doing it when it's only me in the room. So we agreed she cannot visit when my husband is not at home, and husband is not allowed to leave me alone with her. Because of these boundaries, we did not see them for a month and a half. They live 2 hours away, and we did not find a mutually good time. They finally came over last Sunday. 20 minutes into the visit, my father-in-law wants to see a lawnmower that has broken down, so my husband goes to the backyard with him, leaving me, the baby, and mother-in-law inside. She's drinking coffee and eating cake. She sits next to my daughter on her playmat and tries to feed her some of her cake. I immediately tell her no, she can't have that. Mother-in-law pretends not to hear me and proceeds putting her spoon to my daughter's closed mouth. I repeat, stop doing that. She can't have cake yet, and definitely not from your spoon. Still, she pretends not to hear me. I repeat it again, still nothing. And now there's cake on my baby's face and she's fussing. So I grab my daughter and go to my husband and father-in-law, subtly gesturing him to come back inside. After about 5 minutes, mother-in-law decided to go outside too and was approaching me and the baby. I gestured to my husband again and he made an annoyed face. I had no energy to deal with any of this, so I stood up, went inside, grabbed my baby bag and car keys, and went to the car without saying a word. Mother-in-law asked me where I was going and I ignored her. I drove to my sister's, which is about a 15-minute drive. There were some missed calls from my husband, so I texted him where we were and that we'll be back in the evening. It was time for my daughter's nap and she fell asleep breastfeeding, so my sister told me to go to sleep too. After she woke up and had her milk, my sister took her and told me to go back to sleep. I slept 3 hours in total and my phone was on silent, so my husband's calls were ignored, and apparently his parents left disappointed and mother-in-law cried. My husband is furious I did this. We're still fighting about it. He can't believe I was so rude and took the baby away when his parents came to see her after such a long time. He's angry that I couldn't have waited a few minutes so that he could finish talking about the lawnmower. I told him I'm too exhausted to deal with this shit. He left me alone with mother-in-law despite our agreement, be it only 10 minutes, so I left. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your mother-in-law should respect your boundaries, and especially when it's your baby. And your husband should have had your back on that. I do understand that it must be uncomfortable and hurt him seeing his mother cry and be upset, but then he should talk to her about it instead of making you the bad person. The only thing I think you did was wrong was that you didn't pick up your daughter after the first time you said it and mother-in-law didn't listen. Maybe that would have made things go more smoothly, but then again, it shouldn't really be necessary. I do think that it's important that you stand for your boundaries, and your husband should support you on that. This needs to be the new standard. If you don't listen to the baby's mother about what's best for the baby, you immediately lose access to the baby. That is how it's going to be and will be the only way that she might listen. When you're a parent, you need to learn to enforce consequences. This is a great place to start. Not the a-hole, but you have a husband problem as much as a mother-in-law problem. So mother-in-law was ignoring your instructions about your child, so you went to your husband so he could deal with his mother. Except a lawnmower, which would still be there after the conversation which you finished, was more important than his agitated wife and child. And instead of checking to see if you were okay, he had to go at it for making his mother cry. You need to have a serious talk with your husband about how much he is actually supporting you with your child and with his mother. When you have that conversation, do not let him distract you with, "But they were upset." Mother-in-law behaved inappropriately. He ignored you, so you left. Their behavior created the issue. You let him know where you were and when you'd be back. Do not let him turn any of this back on you. He and his mother have a lot to apologize for. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you.